nodes. Here we're expanding the Windows files, so we're doing this in rapid fashion. Maybe 20 minutes or so later, you have 3 VMs installed. This is a little quicker than VMware ESXi because of the slowness of ZFS right now. I'm not getting that much of a throughput on the ZFS file system, even though it's a RAID 10 configuration that I have, RAID Z10. That's going to be cured in the next 4 or 5 months, from what I understand, as they optimize the they optimize the ZFS file system further and incorporate patches and stuff that are in the works now. It's slow, but it works. Here we're booting all the VMs. All 3 VMs are going to make it to the next dialog box, which is the login prompt. It'll ask for a username and password, which you type in twice. I would suggest using long passwords for production systems over 17 digits, since now anything less than that within the next 2 years is going to be crackable using video cards. It's best to use a long password with numbers, letters, symbols, digits, upper and lowercase letters. So you combine all 4 of those, upper, lowercase letters, numbers, and symbols, to create your passwords over 17 digits long. Here I'm not doing that because this is just a test environment which is not live anywhere. Now we're restarting the 3 VMs and opening the consoles. We're going to go through and install all the updates. This requires several reboots and lots of time to perform. We could use SMS or WSS, but I don't have that set up right now. The service packs are installed by going to Control Panel and doing a search for updates. Enabling updates and searching for updates. You do this over and over again until it tells you there is no more updates. After you install several devices, you should recheck for updates relative to the packages, such as SP1 for SQL Server, which you would install after installing SQL Server through the automatic updates. Since it's a new cluster, you don't have to worry too much about backwards compatibility with the installation of the service pack. To warn you, the .NET framework takes a long time. This is because the compilers are a single thread in Windows, unlike Linux, where you have multiple threads that you can spread over CPU cores, and you actually even run them on video cards. It's a single thread, so it does take some time to install. You're wondering what it's sitting there doing all this time, but it's actually just compiling the updates. Now we're going to install. We're finished here installing Service Pack 1 for Server 2008 R2, and we're installing other updates that are appearing as we do our searches for them. And we're going to do this over and over again, as I said, until they're all installed. The only ones I try to skip is the hardware-related patches, because those tend to cause blue screens of death, because the Microsoft versions I find to be less good as the manufacturer's versions. Since we're doing virtual machines and things, we don't have to worry too much about finding those hardware-related service packs, because there isn't any. With KVM and Proxmox, you actually you're not adding client level fixes to the operating system. It's all done with what's detected. And as opposed to VMware, where you install the client tools, it's almost important to use templates and things like that, but with cluster server, it's really not a recommended thing, because with cluster server, you have problems with the network card detection that due to duplication that's not taken care of by sysprep. Here we're installing the iSCSI initiator. We're going to do this on all 3 servers. Now, none of the portals show up. None of the loons will show up until after a reboot. I found this even if I do a network restart that they still don't show up. So I just try to take a few moments to reboot the servers after I go and install the portal on all three servers. As you can see I was refreshing the servers the loons did not show up. They're there and they're working. It's just something with iSCSI Initiator for Microsoft requires a reboot. I'm going to try to investigate this further, but as of the time of this video, I could find no solution for that. So just a reboot takes care of that. Now we're installing it for the third one. Now we're rebooting the VMs. As I said, there's some crazy reason iSCSI doesn't work properly until after reboot. Even restarting networking doesn't take care of it. Now we've rebooted all VMs. As we can see, the iSCSI loons show up here in the next screen that's going to appear here in just a second. There they are. There's the loons. We're not going to use all these loons. We're going to use loons 20 through 25, I believe. 24. 20 through 25. That's assigning five cluster disks in duplication to all three nodes of the cluster. We're not actually going to initialize the disks on two of the nodes until after we install the cluster server. That way there's no confusion and problems with shared disks. There is a bug with the iSCSI implementation that I'm using here, which is IET over ZFS, which causes an error, which we'll get to later on. It doesn't seem to harm anything, but it's because it's missing a valid page descriptor, a worldwide name descriptor on the volumes. And it doesn't seem to harm it any, it just generates a warning. But there is a fix in the works, and a lot of people are working very hard on that. Here we've selected and connected all the nodes to the drives, and we're going to initialize the disks and give them drive letters and format them as, before we give them drive letters, we're going to format them as simple volumes. But we're going to only do this on one VM until after the cluster service is installed, to avoid confusing the operating systems. Here we've assigned the drive letters and formatted them, as you can see. Now next we're going to join the domain. Now all this precludes that we're using DHCP service to assign IP addresses to the first network cards. Here we're selecting the domain and selecting the computer name proper to the individual server in line with what we called the server inside of Proxmox. You select the fully qualified domain name and the administrator username. Actually, it's not the fully qualified, just the domain name / administrator. And we're welcoming to the domain. In my setup, I had a problem with DNS, so it generated an error here that I took care of behind the scenes. And here we go. We're doing the second server. We're going to do this for all three servers. We're going to join the domain. And as soon as they're all three are booted, we're going to be logging into the domain as administrator of the domain for the duration of this video while we're creating the cluster. We could have created a separate user to be more secure, but the domain administrator already has the rights, and we're just going to go with that for the test install here. We're selecting my AD2 administrator, which is the name of my domain there, my AD2, my Active Directory 2. It's going to say welcome to the domain there. It takes a few seconds to come up. The more memory you assign to the VMs, if you have enough available, the faster this stuff is going to go. On my systems, I'm limited to 24 gig of memory, and half that is allocated to the ZFS file system. after the first reboot. We're going to add a failover cluster feature, followed by adding a second network interface, but first we need to add the .NET Framework 3.5.1. This is not done through updates. This is done through features, and so we're going to add the .NET Framework feature. Now, the compilation of the .NET Framework is very slow because it's a single thread, unlike Linux, which allows you to port a compile to a cluster.